Hey guys, how's it going? Remington here, and today I'm with you for a tutorial on how to make this really sick, realistic, kind of grungy metal texture. And I'm also going to be teaching you guys how to customize this for yourself so you can get your own version of this. Now I made this for a project that I called Train and Cube, and if you'd like to figure out the full, or look at the full thing, you can just head over to my website. It's remingtongraphics.net. And then from there we can just click on portfolio, create a portfolio, and then we click on, once it loads, you just click on this and then there's a bunch of different images. They're really large images, so they might take a while to load. In addition to that, I also have a blog, and for those of you that didn't know, well, now you know. I have a bunch of different things here. You can see everyone check out the blog, new channel graphics, almost at 1,200 subs, and if you'd like to, you can go ahead and come down here. Oh, it's not appearing for some reason. I'll have to fix that. But there will be a little thing that allows you to subscribe by email so you guys can get updates whenever I post to the blog. And the blog is going to contain a lot of news and stuff, all sorts of good stuff. I'm going to be advertising it on my channel eventually here. But let's go ahead and get to the tutorial. Now this is for Blender Cycles. So let's go ahead and open up Blender here. And you can see I just have this cube, the default cube set up here. I'm gonna switch from Blender render to Cycles render. And Blender's frozen, there we go. I'm gonna move my cursor back to center. I'm also gonna turn on screencasting keys so you will be able to see all the different keys I pressed down in the lower left hand corner here, just in case there's something that doesn't quite make sense. So I'm gonna move this up one block by pressing G, then X, then 1, and I'm just gonna go ahead and delete the rest of the objects in this scene because we won't need them right now. And this is just me setting up a basic scene. You don't have to do this necessarily. So here I have my wonderful scene. I'm gonna make a new material for this, and we're just gonna make it kind of a dark gray. And then you can see we already have a material for this because it wasn't the original Blender rendering engine, the internal Blender rendering, but I moved it over, so we'll just click the use nodes, and then now we have this. So this will all be done in the node editor. So before we do that though, I'm gonna come over here to this thing that says diffuse BDSF, and I'm going to change it to, where is it? Anisotropic? Anisotropic, sorry, not anisotropic. And basically what this is, it's just a very reflective material. So if I add in a UV sphere here, let me kind of look at it. It looks a lot like metal. So you can see that we get the reflection in there, and it's not glossy, it's anisotropic, which is basically just metal. So over here where it says default right now, we're going to click on this drop down. We're going to come over to compositing, not depositing, and we're going to make sure we have our cube selected, and we're going to come over here, select use nodes. Actually, we'll just go to the material because the material already uses nodes. Now for those of you that don't know how to use this little menu here, it's relatively simple. You just connect different things. They all have different things like color input, roughness input, anisotropy input, rotation input, so on and so forth. And this material output is actually what finally gets put on your material. So if you're using Blender, you should learn how to use this. It's got a lot of super useful features. So we're going to add another anisotropic shader right here. And then we're also going to add a diffuse shader. Oops, I missed that. Shader diffuse. And I know I can be pressing Shift A right here, but I always get confused with that. Alright, so with the first one, we're going to make sure that its roughness is set to 0, which it already is. We're going to make sure the second anisotropic shader has its roughness set to 0.2, and then we're going to make sure we have a diffuse shader. It doesn't really matter what the roughness is. Now we're going to add, we're actually going to go on the internet for a little bit here. We're going to look up grunge vector. And this is kind of where you can go free. And you can see we get all these different textures. This is the one I actually used before. I'm not going to use this one because I don't really want dented metal. I want more scuffed up metal here. So I'm going to try and find something that looks nice and scuffed up, not so much dotted like that. Alternatively, you can look up grunge texture. There's the same way before. We could do something like this. We could kind of make the metal look painted. Use that as a kind of like a mask almost. There we go. Here's something good. So this is like really nice and grungy. This is good too. I might use this. Oh wait, it has a watermark, so we can't. That has a watermark too. Please beat. Come on, don't be annoying. Oh, perfect. So this is the texture I'm going to use, so I'm just going to go ahead and drag this onto my desktop right here. You're not going to be able to see it because I dragged it onto my other monitor, but it is indeed over here, and just in case you don't believe me, here it is. I don't know why you wouldn't believe me though. So in here we're going to come into the add menu, and we're going to add a texture and add a, where is it here? Image texture. Oh, it's up at the top. I always get mixed up with that. And then we're going to add a shader, a mixed shader, and we're going to mix the two anisotropic shaders together. And we're going to use the color from the image texture as the factor. Now basically what this does is, if we open up the picture here, it'll use the light color as the top shader and the dark color as the bottom shader. So anywhere where it's light, it's going to be 100% reflective, and anywhere where it's dark, it's going to be kind of rough because of the roughness we added in. Now I'm not going to drag that in, but I am going to click open here and grab the actual texture from my desktop. Otherwise, it's not going to work pretty well, or very well at all, especially since it won't do anything. Since we are working with a 3D object, we're going to change this from flat to box, and I don't know how to add in a texture coordinate, so I'm going to come over here, and you see I have this image texture thing here, come down to vector, and I'm just going to choose vector generated. You might want to use UV if you're working with a more complicated model. So now if we switch into render view, you can already see that we really have that nice grunge on there. Actually, it looks like I screwed that up there. The top one is the black and the bottom one is the white. And you can just swap them too. And you can see now it's scuffed up in the other direction. Now I'm going to change the mapping a little bit here. I'm going to change the scale. Looks like the y-axis down here. So I'm going to boost the y scale. Actually, we'll drop the y scale, my bad. 0.7 maybe? 0.6. 0.6 looks nice. Then we'll change the Y location, so it's a little bit more centered and it doesn't have any repeating vertices. And there we go. So now we have that nice, really, just kind of, you can see it just barely. It's just kind of grungy. If I change the world to, here, I'll make this really obvious. If I change the world to black, switch out of rendered mode here, and add in a lamp, we'll add in a, actually we'll add in a emission plane. Our X90 to rotate across the X-axis 90 degrees. Oh, didn't mean to click that. We'll add a new material for this, just basic emission texture. Or emission shader, my bad. And we'll change the strength to 3 and scale it up a little bit. And now if we click rendered, we can see that we kind of have that grunge on there, but it's not too obvious, but it's not too like opaque either. Now I'm actually going to tweak, since I don't want it to be like perfectly reflected, so I'm going to add an actually an object for it to reflect here. We'll add in just a little cylinder, I guess. Nice and tiny. So you can see it's like, it's really reflecting that cylinder right there. It's almost too clean. So I'm going to change the roughness on this to maybe 0.02. Maybe that's too much, 0.01. 0.05. Oops, sorry, 0.005, not 0.05. There we go. Now we can kind of see it looks reflective, and it is reflective, and we can clearly make out that it's, I might actually change this to lower, 0.002. But it still kind of has a bit of roughness that makes it look natural. 0.003, we'll try that. And there we go, that starts to look a bit better. Now, we're gonna really seal the deal, because right now the texture is kind of just flat on there, and it doesn't really look right. So I'm going to add, from my vector menu here, I'm gonna add a bump texture, and we're gonna use the color as the height. We're gonna drag out the normal to the first anisotropic. Second, actually we'll just do the second, we'll see what the second looks like. Yeah, there you go, it's the second one. Whichever one is on top, you wanna drag the anisotropy, or the bump map to. So that way you get this like really kind of dented metal, and that way it actually looks like it has some depth. And you can change the strength and the depth. I'm going to change my strength to maybe 0.7 here. That's maybe a bit too much, 0.3. Uh-oh, seems like 1 is actually the best option. Yeah, 1's probably the best option for me at least. And we're also going to drag the normal down to the diffuse texture, which we'll be incorporating soon. So now we have this nice kind of dented metal. And it's more just dented than actually scuffed up. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna look up a white grunge texture. I'm just gonna try and find something that's really nasty. Like, here we go. That looks good. So I'm gonna use this. Now we're gonna save image as to my desktop, and we'll call this white grunge. It is a small texture, but it doesn't really matter in this case. And now we're going to add another image texture. And then we're gonna drag the generated down to the vector here, just so we have the same thing. We're gonna change this to box, and then we're going to open that from our desktop. So white grunge.jpg. And then we're going to go ahead and add a mix shader. Once again, we're going to drag the output from this mix shader into the top. We might have to switch this later. And the diffuse into the bottom. And then we're going to use the color as the factor. Now, it looks like it's going to give us a bit of trouble here. So maybe if we unplug that. Let's see if we swap them maybe. I don't know why it's doing this right now. It's a little bit funky. Oh, duh. Make sure you connect the shader output to the surface over here. I am really stupid for missing that. So now you can see it looks a lot more scuffed up. I might have to actually swap. Yeah, there we go. If we swap them, we get a lot more. And you can see that we really get that kind of washed out texture everywhere. It looks really nice. And now it looks like a really kind of beat up cube, which is kind of like, no, I closed it already, which is kind of like the result we were trying to get. You can really zoom in here and see a lot. And if you'd like to drag the bump on, you can. Some people like this look, some people don't. It's all up to you. So you can see it actually really adds a lot more detail when you do that. I'm actually going to go ahead and just use a HDRI image that I found online from earlier for the world, just so we can get a little bit better idea. By the way, all the links to these textures will be in the description. You can just go ahead and grab those from there. So it will be all uploaded. Oh wait, that was in the right one. Resources, HDR panel. Alright, so this is the HDRI image I use. It's just a nice little house, and you can see the only reflection that was really captured in the image was this little teapot over here, this general area. The rest was just there. But now you can really see that it kind of reflects the rest of the room, but it really doesn't all that much. It mostly just reflects main things. Now if you want to dial this down, what we can do is we can actually add another mix shader between the two here, and we can mix the previous shader with the anisotropic. Oh my gosh, I cannot speak today. Oh my god, I'm just doing terrible. Anyway, we can mix that with the diffuse down here, and we can actually change the factor to change the opacity of the diffuse. So you can see if we change it all the way down, we see purely this shader. If we change it all the way up, we see purely this shader. And if we change it to about 0.35, maybe a bit more, 0.45? Yeah, if we change it to about 0.45 or 0.5, you get this really nice kind of brushed oldish metal. And I'm actually gonna drag this bump back down so we can see all the little details in the cube. Now, of course, this does look a lot better when you actually have something with contrast here, so I'm actually going to change the material of this to maybe something that's not black, but maybe something that has a bit of color. There you can see, like, you can really see the little lines in the middle from all the different things in there. It's really indescript, but you can see all the textures. Now, if you want to make this look a little bit older, maybe a bit rusty, what you can actually do down here is you can come to the color and you can give it just a bit of an orange hint. And actually, hang on, we'll change this back to pure white. Oh, never mind. It's purish white enough. And now you can really see that it's got just a little bit of that red tint in it. Not too much. If you want to boost it more, you can make it like a vivid orange like that. I don't like that look too much though. And I think it actually looks kind of cheesy, so we're gonna take it to the next step. And I'm gonna change this back to white here. Ew, that's like a nasty yellow grunge. And we're gonna add some rust to this. So I'm going to use the same image texture as before. We're gonna add another shader, and in this case I'm going to use a diffuse shader because rust is not very reflective. Like if we look up rust here, and hopefully the game doesn't come up. Yeah, you can see it's really not that reflective. It's very bland almost. And I'm actually gonna save this texture right here. So I'm gonna save image as, and then looks like it's just rust, so I'll remember that title. And we're going to use this as our factor, but we are going to need the image texture again for the rust right here. And we're gonna use that as the color for the diffuse And then we're going to add, yet again, another mix shader. We're going to use the image texture from, actually, we'll use the image texture from up here as the factor because that one's a little bit more precise. You can already see where it's kind of going to be rusting because it's black right now. So you see all the corners are going to get that nice rusted texture. And that's actually a really useful tool. If you only connect one, you can see the blackness of where things are going to connect to it. But now if we connect this, you can see that we get that it's an alright rust. It's not the best looking. It looks like it's actually a little pixelated there. I might have to reposition this texture because I must have not pushed it completely off like I was meant to do. So there we go. That looks a bit better. So now it's nice and rusty. If you'd like to, you can actually change the color of the diffuse as well. If we add in a, oh wait, I figured out why. We didn't connect it to the generated section here. There we go. And then we have to change this to box. And now you can, there we go. Now we have that really, really vivid rust. Now I really don't like that much rust. If you'll need that much rust, go for it. Instead, I'm going to add in another mix shader. And we're going to use the same opacity technique as before. We're going to use this, and we're going to set the opacity. So you can see there, it's kind of dropping down a little bit. Maybe 0.7. Oops. Maybe, oh, I have these switched, that's why. 0.7. There we go, so now it's rusty. It's not 100% rusty, but you get that really nice texture as well. And then we can use the bump from this up here, or down here too. And it looks like it might be a little bit too strong, but you get the general concept, and we get this really nice, cool looking metal texture. So, if you would like to customize this for yourself, get an entirely different metal texture, you can actually swap out the image textures that I've chosen here for another image texture. So, let's say I wanted less grungy. We could look up white scratch texture, because scratches are typically less scratchy, or less, like, fuzzy. Because, here, we'll actually look at the metal here. So, in metal, there's like, it's either really glossy, or it's kind of got this kind of shimmering almost, but it's not quite glossy, it's kind of diffused as well. And that's kind of what I was going for with this cube, but if you want like really glossy with just scratched up, we can get this scratch texture right here, or it's got watermarks on it. This one looks like it might have a watermark. Yeah, that has a watermark. This one might be good. This one's, nope, that's deposit photos. Here, maybe if we open up our search tools and look up labeled for reuse. Oh. Here we go. Here's the nice one. This one's like really high def. So that's a lot of scratches. It might be a little bit too scratchy, but now we can just open it up in here. So this one's my diffusing kind of texture. It's white grunge, and we have to find texture brush scratch. And I'm actually gonna go ahead and disable the rust for a second here so you guys can see this. And you can see it's really kind of grungy right now. That's because this image is actually kind of inverted. So if you remember, if you look at this one, it's white on black, and this one's black on white. So since this is black on white, we're gonna have to swap out the shaders that we have. Did I seriously not connect that? I am intelligent. Anyway, it looks fine without it being attached, but let's see, let's follow it. We have to follow it because it is a little bit funky. So this is gonna have to go on the bottom. And there you go. Now you see it's a lot cleaner, and all we really have is those scratches in there from the metal. And like if we want to open it up in here to the HDR panel, you can really start to see the scratches. And oh, that's actually kind of cool. You can actually see the reflection of the room kind of made out of scratches because I use the panorama instead of the brush texture. Anyway, there you go. Now you can really see it's really scratched up. And if we swap the shaders once again, you can see it gets really not scratched up, except you can see all the different individual scratches in it. So if you didn't see my last video, it was 5 really cool camera tricks in Blender, and I'd really advise watching that video because I know it made my compositions about 1 billion times better, and I can't even imagine what it would do to some of yours, because I know a lot of my subscribers are really creative. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you'd like to see more tutorials regarding this, like these really cool materials in Blender, go ahead and leave a comment, leave a like down below as well, and that about sums it up. So, I guess that really wraps it up. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Adios. So you can kind of look at it, we can drag the camera back here, and you can kind of see the pan from far away. It'll give like an orbit almost, and then if we move it nice and close here, we get this really up close footage. It looks like my camera's off a bit here. Let me adjust it really quick. There we go, that looks good. So now you can see we get this nice, really up close, clean orbit.